Welcome to Charter Local Edition. My name is Brad Pomerance in the greater Long Beach area. We are joined today by Tony Mendoza. He is a member of the California State Senate, and the session has ended for the year. And I want to speak about some of the bills that you pushed. And I want to start with a bill that was inspired by a young man from Whittier named Paul Lee. Tell us about this young man, Paul Lee.
Paul Lee comes from an immigrant family. He has a sister who's about 21. Mom and dad, they're both immigrants from Korea.
Right.
They live in Whittier, and he's a special needs student.
Right.
He has autism.
Right.
He's nonverbal, so he can't speak, and he attends a special needs school with the Whittier Union High School District.
And let's talk about a fateful day. Remarkably, September 11th, 2015. Paul was on a school bus being taken to school. Like you said, he's nonverbal. And tragedy struck. Yes. What happened on that day?
Well, it's like every other day when this bus comes and picks up these students at their home and they transfer them to school. This driver who happened to pick him up this morning was a substitute driver that was picking up all these kids, dropped them all off. He returned to the yard, turned off the bus, and he left home.
He didn't realize what?
He didn't realize that he left a student behind. He did not follow protocol where his license and his job requires that at the end of every shift, he's supposed to walk to the back of the bus and check for students who may have fallen asleep or were not aware that they had to get off, and then before the end of his day.
And so a young Paul Lee was left on the bus. September's hot, and it's hard to even talk about. We lost Paul.
Yes.
We lost him.
Paul passed away, and it was a very tragic event. It was the news all over California, and the special needs advocates in California were up in arms. They were upset at the tragedy because these children are in our care, and their families expect their children to return home once they get on that bus.
Now, two states, Arkansas and Wisconsin, have legislation that addresses this issue, and it deals with an alarm system. Explain the alarm system that they have and what ultimately inspired you to push for SB 1072. It's so simple, but tell us what happens in Arkansas and Wisconsin.
Their bills, and this bill covers a piece of that as well,
Right.
which basically now mandates that any bus company or any school district must install an alert system in the back of the bus. And sometimes you could just wave a card, or you have to push a button, manually push a button to avoid the alarm going off on that bus once you turn off that engine.
So what it essentially is doing is, because the alarm is in the back, the only way to turn off the alarm is to go in the back.
Right.
And so it requires the bus driver to walk it through the back of the bus, and you see if there are children there.
That's correct.
It's that simple. If you don't do it, the alarm goes off.
That is correct. And Brad, I'm going to be honest with you. When I first heard about this bill and the parents wanted to do something about it, I didn't want to carry the bill because I didn't want to put an alarm system for these people to do their job.
But
it is their job to go to the back of the bus, right?
I know,
but that's where my bill differs from the other states.
Oh, explain.
It goes a step further.
Which is?
It ensures that the school district and the bus companies create a protocol to make sure when these drivers have their annual training, that they get trained to make sure they go to the back of the bus, to make sure they continue to be vigilant of these students who most of the time are special needs.
Right.
And the next thing it does, it mandates that the district or the bus companies report to the DMV that they left the student behind, because the DMV will take appropriate actions, whether it be suspend their license, revoke their license, and pretty much fine them in some way.
But the alarms will be placed in California buses?
Yes, that is the same thing. Yes.
Here's what's remarkable to me. This tragedy occurred about a year ago, and the legislation has already flown through and it's becoming law. I mean, how often do you see an incident spur legislation and you get action that quickly?
Yeah, we've had pretty much unanimous support, bipartisan support. Everybody saw the need for it. But it wasn't easy. We had some opposition at the beginning.
Really? From?
Yes, the independent bus companies. They did not want to have this. You know, there's bus companies that transport students to games after school or to tours or trips. They didn't want to abide by this. So we set up a whole list of other things they need to do to ensure that the students are well kept.
How does it make you feel that you can call up Paul Lee's mother and say, I am so sorry for your loss, but it wasn't in vain. We passed a piece of legislation that's named in your son's honor, the Paul Lee School Bus Safety Law.
His family, Paul Lee's family, mother and father and sister, have been at these hearings. They have testified, and it was a very emotional testimony in different committees. And I tell you that it's when you hear the story that special needs students are trained and taught that when a bus stops and they look around the windows, and if they don't recognize the surroundings, they're told to stay in the bus because it's safer for you to be there than to walk out and get lost. And that's probably what happened to Paul Lee, where he opened up his eyes at the bus stop or the bus where they parked the bus, and then it recognizes he's nonverbal, so he stayed in the bus waiting for somebody to come get him.
I salute you for having the fortitude to push this piece of legislation because, like you said, they should do it anyway, but sometimes we simply need an extra little fix. And if that's what's necessary, amen to that. You also had another piece of legislation, a historic one, dealing with workers' comp reform. A lot of elements to the bill, sir, but I want to talk about one specific element, if I may, and that deals with the first 30 days after an incident. Explain what happens today, and then we can talk about the fix.
Well, right now, as soon as an injury occurs, if a worker goes to the doctor and wants to get treatment, they could deny their treatment, say, no, you don't need it. And that's what triggers an employee to say, wait a minute, I need to get into training. They don't want to take care of my needs. They don't want to take care of my doctor saying I need this. They don't want to take care of it.
And remember, the doctor is one that's been assigned by the employer.
Right.
So I don't want to suggest impropriety, but there's a potential conflict, or at least a perceived conflict.
Right.
So what does your legislation do? It's SB 1160.
It says that a doctor that sees this patient and says, for the first 30 days, that patient will receive any and all care that the doctor asks the patient to have. And the businesses cannot deny it. The insurance cannot deny it. Nobody could deny that the worker will get the treatment that they need for the first 30 days. Studies have shown that most employees, after they've been injured, they return to work 95% of the time within the first 15 days.
So how do we make sure that this new system is implemented in an ethical way and there is not abuse?
Oh, that this particular piece of legislation was supported by everybody.
Really?
Attorneys, the business community, their insurance people, the doctors, the injured workers. Everybody loved it because everybody got a benefit from this bill.
I see.
And this bill is so transformative in so many ways.
I talked about one small piece.
I mean, you're talking about some of the fraud that we're getting rid of. The 30 days is the big one for the injured workers. And we're stopping all the fraudulent lien sales that they do behind these injuries. I mean, there's so much going on.
You'll come back?
Oh, yes, we can talk about this.
Of course. He is Tony Mendoza. He is a member of the California State Senate. My name is Brad Pomerance. We're coming to you from Long Beach on Charter Local Edition.